Let me introduce myself. My name is Stephen Powers, I'm Deputy General Counsel and Public Safety Advisor to Governor Kitzhaber.
My name is Deanne Darling, and I'm a Circuit Court Judge in Clackamas County.
And I'm Jeff Reardon, newly elected. Been in office for 6 days now. Very happy to be here.
And we are the only judging panel that actually represents the three branches of government.
If the Team Green could go ahead and introduce themselves.
Hello, my name is Theodora, and I am the captain of Unit 2, which focuses on how the framers created the Constitution.
Good morning, my name is Alex.
Pleased to meet you. My name is Amy. Hello, I'm Lily.
Hi, I'm Calvin.
Good morning, my name is Claire. I'd like to introduce my coaches, Jeff Edmondson, Jason Trombley, and my teacher, Tim Swinehart.
Thank you for being here today.
Thank you.
The office of the President was to a degree invented and made potentially strong as a counterweight to the excesses of legislative bodies. This was a large, new grant of power, a new office unlike anything before in Republican government. What was new or different about the office of President devised at the Philadelphia Convention? In what ways did the office of President differ from that of consuls, kings, royal governors, or prime ministers? How did the framers try to achieve a balance between an energetic executive and limited government?
William Miller was partially correct when he wrote that the office of the President was a new office. It was only new in the unique combination of pre-existing powers and checks applied to a national executive. These individual powers and checks were derived from previous executives, particularly from state executives in the Revolutionary era.
For example, 10 state constitutions granted their executives the commander-in-chief power, now allocated to the President under Article 2, Section 2 of the Constitution. 2 state governors had the power to veto bills, including that of Massachusetts, whose governor was highly similar to the President, except for 2 key differences. The President has foreign relations powers, and the Massachusetts governor was dependent on the state legislature, which elected a governor's council, which advised the governor on a broad range of issues.
As Miller points out, the office of the President was a strong office, but hedged. These checks were also derived from state constitutions. The Constitution of Massachusetts provided for an identical veto override as seen in Article 1, Section 7 of the U.S. document. The governor of South Carolina was restricted by the legislature, needing their advice and consent to enter into treaties, as the President does today. Regardless of these similarities, this structure had never been seen in a national executive.
These derived powers and checks evolved, if circuitously, from the knowledge of historical executives that the framers of both the state and national constitutions possessed. The Roman consuls were more restricted than the President by their one-year term limit, duality, veto power over each other, absence of war powers, and inability to run for re-election for 10 years. As well as being more of a legislative entity, the office of the consul was a well-respected position, only reached at the height of a public career.
When comparing the King of England to the President, note that, by the time the Constitution was written, much of the King's power had been siphoned off to the Prime Minister and Parliament. However, he retained the sole power to appoint Prime Ministers and royal governors. Prime Minister during the Revolutionary era was more powerful than both the King and the President, because he was both the executive and legislative leader, allowing for more easily passed legislation. However, he was more answerable to the people than the King, and could be removed in more ways than the President.
Royal governors possessed many of the same powers as the President, but were only limited by the Crown and not by the people. Article 1, Section 4 of the Constitution, which calls for Congress to meet annually, was a response to the royal governor's prorogue power and its constant use to dissolve colonial legislatures.
The framers had seen executive tyranny in the royal governors on one hand, and feeble executives in the state governments on the other, and tried to achieve a balance between an energetic executive and a limited government. The energy that many framers considered a necessity in an effective executive was achieved through giving the President a more general grant of power, through Article 2's vesting clause. The framers were comfortable with granting the office large amounts of power, partly due to their certainty that George Washington, a man Miller describes as being honored for his selfless devotion to the common good, would be the first president.
Additionally, Alexander Hamilton argued in Federalist 70 that an energetic executive requires first, unity, secondly, duration, thirdly, an adequate provision for its support, fourthly, competent powers. However, the system of checks and balances and a due dependence upon the people, as Hamilton put it, ensures that the president is also sufficiently limited. Although the framers designed the office of the president to be both energetic and checked simultaneously,